All right. Well, I guess we should start with a few intros. Nick, it's great to have you here. Would you be able to say a couple of words about yourself and your background in the games industry and
Yeah, good to be here, Christopher. So yeah, I'm Nick. I work for Gameloft. I'm based in Bucharest. At Gameloft, obviously, as you may know, we develop video games and publish video games. I'm the head of QA here. I work at Gameloft since 2004. I started as a QA tester, and yeah, now I'm leading all the QA operations and QA effort that we have in Gameloft.
yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, just very briefly about me. My name's Christopher. I'm one of the people who started modl.ai, and at modl.ai we build tools that use automation and AI to support QA teams across the industry for different purposes. So that's me. Yeah,
Perfect. We need more of that, Christopher. Yeah.
we do what we can.
Yeah, that's great.
But but Nick, I know as you just mentioned, you have a long history in the games industry, and you've seen a lot of things in terms of how QA works and fits into different workflows. The first thing that comes to mind for everyone, I guess, is always kind of like QA is about finding bugs and detecting issues and things like that. But it also goes a lot broader often, and that's worth some attention. Beyond bug detection, I mean, what's the role that you see QA playing in shaping things like game design and player experience over the next?
Mhm. Yeah, I've been in Gameloft since, like I said, probably 20 years, I think now, and yeah, being in QA in the industry for such a long period of time, since early stages of the industry, I've seen a lot of things. So I've seen QA evolving quite nicely, and I think that in the past years it's evolving even more from what we used to know about QA and we used to see being more like having a more reactive role, like you said, finding bugs, reporting bugs. Right now is becoming more strategic. It's becoming more proactive function, let's say, in game development. I think that in the long run, maybe not so long, but rather short and medium term, I think that QA is going to be have more, let's say, a key role in terms of data-driven decision making and in general making sure that our players have a good experience. They contribute to the and QA can contribute to the game balance and in general to maybe even design validation. So overall improving the quality of the game. Maybe having more being more shaping the games in a more maybe holistic way. And yeah, in this I'm thinking also about understanding better maybe the player behavior, identifying pain points before the launch, and even more maybe influencing like strategy of the monetization, maybe strategy of the game, but not limited to that. In QA we have all the time many gamers that like to play games, so they know the best what they want to see in a game when they play it. So yeah, maybe QA can, and I think that this can be an option for QA to be like this bridge between the game development teams and maybe the player experience part. Like I said, yeah, shaping games in a way more holistic way than it used to be, like you said, on bug detection, on what we used to know.
Yeah, thank you. And I've heard this come up in other conversations before, and I've sometimes heard people say that the future role of QA is kind of like being it's two things. It's like taste and communication internally on the production.
Totally, yeah, I agree with that.
So touching on sort of like this role of being like strategic and understanding players and how QA fits into that, a lot of games are moving on to live service if they haven't already, and as we all know, most upcoming titles have some sort of like component of that built into them, and that obviously I guess also changes or challenges how QA has worked before to how they do now. So looking at that, do you have what are your thoughts on how QA has evolved or should or will evolve to deal with this process of ongoing updates, continuous content releases, lots of player-driven feedback loops? What does that look like from your perspective?
I think that QA, not QA, but game development used like and with QA was more like test and release the game. Right now, like this approach, right now with live services, indeed, it's more about continuous testing all the time. So maybe QA, and that's what I think QA needs to evolve maybe in three main ways. Since we know that requires more, the frequent updates require more shorter testing cycles. QA needs to adopt maybe more of automation and be more agile into that, especially for regression testing, in order to test the whole content and make sure that the new content doesn't break anything in the existing content or features. At the same time, I think that QA needs to integrate more real-time player feedback, as we know that live games rely a lot on the community, so QA has to be connected to the vibe of the community, to the feedback from the community, be it but maybe not directly to the end user, but with the other departments that are in touch with the users. I don't know, customer support, maybe data analyst or community management or whatever, in order to identify and address maybe in a very agile way and fast the live issues. And in the same time, he has to find ways in order to replicate the user ecosystem. In QA, we don't have the millions of testers like we have the millions of players. So we need to find a way in order to simulate all those conditions, make sure that the user experience that our users have, their performance, when they play the game, when our game performs very well under a real world, let's say, condition. So QA has to find ways in order to make sure that does that, and like I said, in a continuous way with the live services. So yeah, even more, maybe QA has to be also integrated in the live operations to constantly monitor and test and improve games based on the feedback, on the metrics, and everything depends on how the things will evolve. That's my perspective. Yeah.
So still going across, communicating, making sure everybody's informed, and kind of like pulling threads together across the production.
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
Well, jumping back to the other point that you mentioned, because you also mentioned how like automation can be helpful in enabling QA to actually do that, so that you're not stuck testing all the old content, whether the new content breaks and all that. Obviously, AI is starting to impact some of those processes as well. What have you seen, and how do you sort of like envision AI shaping the future of QA going forward?
Here I would say from the beginning that a tester, maybe a human tester won't be replaced by AI, but a human tester without AI or without automation is going to be replaced by a human tester with AI and automation. So I think here that AI is going to be very useful for mostly maybe for repetitive tasks, sure, not limited to that. But in order to allow QA teams to focus more on this part of exploratory testing, which is very important, especially with the games that are becoming bigger and more complex and so on. But I think AI is going to be very useful on this part of simulating thousands of playthroughs, catching balancing issues. In general, maybe in this part of actually playing the game, automated play testing, to say so. Can also be used can be very useful for analyze past data to predict maybe high risk areas where issues, bugs can happen, so can help let's say human testers in this direction. Then in terms of bug reporting, can analyze various large data sets in order to prioritize bugs or maybe categorize the bugs. Then can help us with test case generation or optimization. We used on that. We are testing that, so we see that is working. Sure, we can't rely 100% on that. You still need people to to actually filter that information and put their the brains at work. And in the same time, can analyze large data related to user feedback, complaints, from users. And in general, help QA in this direction. But like I said, AI is not going to replace, in my perspective, the human testers, but is going to augment them in order to let them, free a time for them to create to more scenarios and be more creative and actually have a more strategic role and testing process.
I see. Yeah, it's helping you go faster and further more than sort of like replacing.
Yeah, exactly.
If I can take an extra deep dive on one of the things that you said, because that was really interesting to me. You kind of like mentioned how there are certain human qualities in exploratory testing that are super important. I don't know if you could add kind of like a couple of extra thoughts on that part.
Here I would say that AI can assist exploratory testing, but is not can't replace human element. Of course, we are talking about the data that we have right now at disposal. We don't know how technology is going to evolve. So, but this is my perspective right now based on what I see. So I think that AI right now excels in pattern recognition, automation, maybe into this direction. But exploratory testing is a bit more than that. It also relies on intuition, on curiosity, and maybe in interacting with the game in a very unexpected way. That again, millions of players can and will interact with the games. So at the end of the day, humans are playing our game, not an AI. So I think that in respect to that, we also need to have the human perspective on the game. Sure, AI, like I said, can suggest some test scenarios, can identify maybe some of the anomalies, to say it so faster, can generate some edge cases, stuff like that. But I think that we as people, humans, will still have an edge on this, to unpredictable player behavior, like exploits or maybe emergent gameplay, stuff like that, to actually see a bit the future in an unpredictable way. Create this kind of stress testing, like pushing mechanics beyond their intended use. I've seen testers breaking the game in a way that nobody thought, that it's possible, but at the end of the day, very valuable, because players can face that. If a tester can face that, sure, a user can do it. Also, I would say, user empathy, understand how maybe the emotions and game flow can impact player enjoyment. Maybe, is this game frustrating in here or in there? Sure, maybe an AI can pass very quickly after a level once learns that level, but for a person is not going to be maybe that way. Once aims for another experience. Only if you test with a real person, you can actually detect those kind of things. Also, if I'm to recap to everything, looking at the game and saying, yeah, this is a great game, I like to play it or not, is not, because the game is not only about testing and actually reporting issues, but it's also about, is this game fun? Do I enjoy this game? And I think that here a person actually has a competitive edge versus an AI. So yeah, human intuition and creativity, like you pointed out, I think that here person can have an edge, let's say, over AI.
Human creativity still. There's nothing as dangerous as a well-motivated explorer.
Yeah, totally.
Well, thanks. That's really enlightening and obviously aligns with a lot of our thoughts as well. So kind of like switching gears from AI and thinking more about the industry and ways of working and your personal experience. As you mentioned at the beginning, you've been in the industry for more than 20 years at this point, with Gameloft for a long time, working your way through that organizations. Are there any key lessons from your career experience that you would want to share?
We see with AI, we saw it with automation, we've seen it in the past. I think that in general technology advances very fast, and of course gaming is part of this. Also the gaming industry evolved really fast. We know that it's gone parabolic in the past 20 years. So and in the same time we see a lot of tools, methodologies, technologies, industry trends, and so on. So we see this part of technology, but in the same time we see also I would say a lot of M&As, mergers, acquisitions. We see gaming companies acquiring other gaming companies, or not necessarily gaming, but in general we see shifts in this corporate dynamic. So I think we as professionals need to, in QA, but maybe everywhere, we need to adapt constantly to these changes, to external factors, like I said, technology and stuff like that, but also to internal environments, because once you maybe move from one company to another and these mergers and acquisitions happen, you need the ecosystem shifts internally as well sometimes. So So I think that we need to be stay curious and adaptive. So this was a key learning for me along, key lesson maybe in the past 20 years. Then another one would be, we already touched this, to go beyond this bug reporting. QA isn't just about bug reporting. For me, it's about understanding the product, understanding the game holistically, and offering solutions, I would say, to improve the player experience, because that's what matters. That's why we build games. It's for our players. Another lesson would be to build all the time strong relationship. That's a lesson that I learned. It's very important to have these relationships inside the department, be it outside the department, in multi-departmental companies like we are, and communicate effectively with developers, designers, producers, and everything. But also external, outside the company, with industry experts, and having this knowledge sharing, exchange information all the time. I think we need all the time more of that, because we can learn from other experience, and everyone can grow from that instead of working in silos or isolated. Another lesson that I learned is that taking initiative is very important. You can stand out if you proactively suggest improvement, you find ways to improve workflows, your work, or maybe of a colleague, you see something that can be improved. And in general, even maybe once you gain some knowledge, some experience, you can mentor and coach more junior people again to help them, lift them and help them grow. And maybe the last point here that comes in my mind, it's like I said, we are building games for our players, so think like a player. The best professionals, QA professionals, don't just test the game and report the bugs. They play it like an audience. They play it for the audience, anticipating real issues before the players actually do. So that's maybe the ultimate scope, because that's what we want to do to have users that enjoy the games. So these principles, these lessons, maybe helped me to grow in this past like you said, also 20 years.
Nice, thank you. And do you think if somebody were just like starting out, because obviously QA is also has been often a pathway into the games industry and things like that, do you think the same things hold for somebody starting up today, the same lessons that you've seen?
I think that yes, and I think that there are maybe some other points on top of that. These are some my lessons, but that I took in the past. But maybe what got me here won't get me there, because like I said, technology is changing, context is changing. So these were my lessons, still good, they still apply. So I would let's say recommend to anyone. But I think that some other things, because the QA has emerged in the past years, some other things could be taken into consideration. For me, what is important these days is to QA to understand the product also. The game that you are testing, how is built, why is built in that way, what is the game success strategy, what developers want to achieve, what is the audience that the game is going to have. So it's crucial for a QA to understand the product. Then once you know all this, you can, the tester, to improve the user experience of that. What needs to happen to improve the user experience? Then work with developers into that direction. Think more like a designer. Go just beyond the bugs reporting, like I pointed earlier. So offer feedback and stuff like that. And it goes back to what you said in the beginning, communication. So communicate these things. Another point would be to develop maybe strong technical skills, I would say. Maybe in the past, 20 years ago when I started, automation was not a thing at that, but right now it's a thing. AI was not a thing, but now it is. Developing strong technical skills, it is good. Another point would be based on the data. We are gathering and collecting more and more data. Again, in the past, these were not on the table maybe as much as is today. Develop soft skills. I can't point enough. Communication, because it's important to explain clearly to the developers not only a bug, but also an idea, a suggestion, to a feedback from a user. Communication, it's crucial to be able to pitch what your ideas. And maybe the last point here, if I am again to wrap it up on this point, lead without a title. Lead, informally people around you. If they are more juniors, try to mentor them. or maybe lead an initiative that develops in something better for the product, for the ecosystem where you are working, things like this. Like I said, just go beyond just testing and show initiative, vision, and I think that this can help anyone to stand up in QA and rise in their career.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, timeless advice in certain ways as well. Yeah. It also sounds like there's like a holy trinity of like, holistic product understanding, communication, and then keeping up with like technical skills kind of like across the board.
Yes, nicely recapped.
Okay. No, thank you. Well, I mean, then we talked a little bit about QA, we talked about technology, production processes, how to stand out in organizations and everything like that. And then, coming back to your like personal experience. So given all these things that we've discussed in these topics, if you look back on the journey that you've been through, is there kind of like one particular moment or one project in your career that really impacted how you think about these like notions of QA and leadership?
I think that many years ago, I think that was a moment, I can't put a finger on exact moment, but rather a short period of time when I realized that QA and development are not separate entities. Right now, maybe it seems a bit very common sense for everyone, but years ago it was not necessarily like that. It was more like a separation between QA and development, and QA would identify issues, developers would fix them, and the cycle would repeat. I think that that time created sometimes some frictions maybe into the working, but it was working, and I know that the industry was working like that. That was the moment maybe that significantly shaped my approach, because I felt that it can develop in something better. So we shifted to a more collaborative approach, and I saw the benefits of that. There were even there is a meme on the internet that I kind of used it in some of the presentation. The tester was throwing a bug over the wall, and the developer was throwing a fix, but actually were some bricks that they were throwing. We shifted to a more collaborative approach, and I think here there are a few points that in order to elaborate. What is important, you can embed QA in the development process more in depth. It can be physically to work with the developers in there physically, but we've seen also working, especially in pandemic when everyone was forced to work from home, that you can't be physically there. So you needed to find other ways. So rather you had to be embedded more in a mental way, to say so, to actually be there with present in the virtual meetings and so on. So I think here game developers had a great credit for this, and I seen it in Gameloft as well, because integrated QA more and more in their processes, in their meetings and so on, and they were eager to take QA on board. Of course, QA was there, so I think it was a merge, a joint effort. Everyone did their part, and 50-50. So right now, having tested that, sit on the design discussion, giving feedback on the early, let's say, potential risks that can happen in the development of the project, understand better what is upcoming in order to prioritize work and so on. So embedding QA in the development process, it was something that was very important, and still right now is very, very important. Building trust and knowledge sharing between QA and developers. Here, what was important from my experience is understanding each other's work. There were times maybe when developers, when QA was adding bugs, and developers say, okay, but this bug is not that important and so on, but for QA is important. Once you understand each other's perspective, what is important for each part, then you can also adjust your work. And I go back to having empathy, regarding to the AI and human behavior, but also I think it's important to understand each other's work, because in the moment you understand, you can improve your way of working. Ultimately, it's something that we started, bug finding and so on, but shifting from this gatekeeper mentality to rather a more problem-solving mindset. QA was not longer there for us to just catch mistakes or bugs, but rather help development teams to make better decisions, make better games, so we were in the same, let's say, boat. So that was maybe something that shifted a lot, because that enabled a plethora of options once you shift to this, instead of I'm throwing you my work, you throw me back your work. Exactly. So we actually work together to something more meaningful, and that I think that significantly shaped my approach in terms of QA and leadership, because collaboration was more giving way better results, and in general even more it's even more greater in terms of atmosphere and vibe in the office, because everyone is enjoying more the work they do.
Yeah, I think that's a strong message of the value of integration.
Yes,
and collaboration
totally.
as well.
Yeah, and there is I've seen its results. I've seen it how it people just flourish sometimes out of that, and it's very nice and very cool to see.
Well, on that note, thank you very much for your time and all your comments on this. It's been really exciting to learn about your career and all the things that you've seen and see for the future of the industry. Is there anything you'd like to say on the way out before we close up?
Yeah, I think that the future looks good for game industry and looks good for QA. Like I said, we had some maybe some lessons that we learned, and we have already some good perspectives. And I see that technology is just going to enhance and build on the good foundation that we had in the past. Technology and people will going to be even more greater products with the focus on people, because the people are the ones that put a lot of let's say emotion that we can't get out of the equation in here, and we build, like I said, we build games for the players.
Fantastic note to end on. So thank you so much for that, and thank you for your time.
Thank you as well, Christopher.